Hi, I'm Andrew from Arseblog, and you're listening to Highbury and Heels.
Welcome to another episode of Highbury and Heels, and I think every Gooner around the world has been able to catch their breath this morning after that insane game against Liverpool at the Emirates. And we are very lucky to have one of Arsenal's favourite sons with us on the show today. He contributes to The Guardian, The Mirror, 442, The Irish Independent. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was one of the, if not the first ever Arsenal podcaster. He has authored 2 books about Arsenal. He's the voiceover man. I like to call him the Velvet Voice. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andrew from Arseblog.
Woo! Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, let's just get stuck into this, right? And let's start at the insane part. This is where I want to begin. I'd like to know from each of you, when the third goal went in, and I'd love to start with you, Andrew. Where were you? How did you react? Just talk us through it.
I was sitting on my sofa with the laptop in front of me, writing the match report for Arseblog News, trying to figure out what the hell I'd just seen, considering we'd scored 2 goals that I didn't think were possible. And then Ozil scored his, and I was like, fuck! What? What is happening here? I just couldn't quite get my head around what I'd seen. You know, we do have this thing, don't we, where we sort of have these little 5 or 8 or 10 minute spells where we score a lot of goals. I think we did something quite similar in the Huddersfield game. But considering the way that the rest of that Liverpool game had gone, it was so unexpected. It really was. I mean, it was obviously amazing, a wonderfully fun 5 or 6 minutes. You know, which was great considering what came either side of it was a pain in the arse.
Oh, tell me about it. Well, I was in the North Bank and I literally jumped up and down. I almost fell arse over tit over how many rows in front. My mate had to grab me because else I think he would have lost me forever. It was absolute chaos. I can't even, when it went, because that's where I sit like 6 rows from the front. So, and I sit to the right. So that goal went in on my side. And I literally, honestly, there was like a second. And then, cause we thought, oh my God, is he going to save it? Cause he hit it. Ozil did that, hit it in the ground. So it chips over the keeper. So we thought, oh my God, maybe they know that he does that. And then when Milio let down, it just went in slow motion, and I absolutely lost my shit. I cannot, that is the only way I can describe it. I've now woken up this morning and my hand is in agony. I must have hit somebody or something, because honestly, it's killing me. I don't even remember doing it. It was just nuts.
I was actually sitting next to my 2 friends. They are visiting me from London, and one of them doesn't really watch football at all. The other one just sometimes. I think they thought I was crazy because you know me, I'm pretty quiet. I'm not very loud. I went crazy. I think I pinched one of them. I hit the other one. I was just jumping around. I couldn't breathe half the game though.
So, I am, as you know, here in LA, and when the third goal, firstly, my dogs had already disappeared after the first 2 goals. They went, I scared the bejesus out of them. And then when the third goal went in, I yelled so much. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but my neighbor's car alarm went off. And it was really bizarre. I felt like that commercial, you know, when the kid with the lightsaber, where his dad clicked the remote control from the living room and he thought like the car went on and stuff. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Amanda, talk, because you were in the posh seats yesterday.
Oh, my life. I was in the prawn sandwich brigade lot. I've never done this before, and it's not football to me, but it was a lovely experience, except when you're in club level, I'm not really keen of sitting with the Tarquins and the Edwards because it did my head in. But when Ozil scored, I just grabbed the bloke next to me and kissed his cheek because I needed to do something. Because where I normally sit, I'd have kissed my cousin and everybody else. I was nearer the clock end, which I'm not. I normally sit nearer the North Bank, so I had a very different view. We just went ballistic. Well, I did. I'm not bothered about all the others in club level, but it was just because Ozil and me have had a love affair since day one. So for me, and seeing his name come up on the screen, which I could see, because obviously I was in a different position, I just went into like orgasm, I'm afraid. It was just that to
Lovely.
me is football porn. That to me, that 1-2 with Lacazette was just football porn. And Ozil, this is what we deserve to see, and this is what we see.
So here's the scoop, Andrew. Let's get to the reality of what happened yesterday, right? And I want to start with you on team selection. In the first half, I felt like he was spanked on the flank. In the second half, I thought he was a little superstar and someone that we're definitely excited about, in terms of Maitland-Niles. What do you think about the team selection, and how do you think that affected the first half performance?
I thought it was quite interesting. It was a point I made in the blog today. Arsene Wenger talked about Maitland-Niles during the week, and he said, he's all these great qualities, but he said one of the weaknesses he has, he's got to work on his heading, right? And I thought that was a bit strange, making public a player's weakness when he's a young guy, a young midfield player playing at left back, being asked to do a job against the likes of Salah and Firmino, Coutinho. That's a lot to ask of a young player with that kind of inexperience. And I thought it was telling a couple of times in the first half. Liverpool put these crosses towards the back post because they were trying to target him and work on the fact that maybe his positioning wouldn't be great, his heading's not great, because they know that because the manager said it. And Cech saved one, Firmino put one just wide, I think. I could sort of see why he wanted to play him there, but I just feel like you're doing the team and you're doing the player a kind of disservice, because it gives you an easy get out in a way, right? Because if you play a 20-year-old at left back, a 20-year-old midfielder, nobody's going to go to town on the young kid who's coming in and trying his best. And I think he's an exciting young player. There's definitely something there. We might have said that about a few in recent past as well, who haven't quite kicked on, and that's a different thing. But, we have Monreal, and we have Callum Chambers and Rob Holding, who could play centre half. We've got Said Kolasinac, who could play left back as well, more natural players. And I would have liked, perhaps, if he's got this much faith in Maitland-Niles as a player, let's have a look at him in midfield, where perhaps we could use those qualities he's got in terms of his recovery pace and everything else. So, I don't really understand the thinking behind it, because it surely can't be a long-term thing playing him there. It's not fair on him. It's not fair on the team. And I'm not sure it's a long-term solution, but he acquitted himself as well as he could have, really. I don't point any fingers at him whatsoever.
No, exactly. I said exactly the same thing to the guys I was sitting around last night. And I just didn't understand. Okay, play Maitland-Niles, but why not substitute him for Xhaka? Xhaka was horrendous last night, and if you wanted a defensive midfielder, put him in the middle. Like you say, we had Kolasinac, we had Mustafi, and he just didn't play any of them. I just thought he threw him in at the deep end, and and just left him there. In the first 20 minutes alone, they had 4 attacks down that flank. They knew to attack him. So I don't understand why Arsene made that decision to put him in there. It was crazy. It was crazy. Second half he got better, and I think he grew into the game, but he should never have been put in that position in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, thing is, I think also one thing though is that I was saying yesterday, but I watched the game again today. Yesterday I was saying if Jack would have been more supportive to him, but when I watched the game today, he was everywhere. His heat map was insane. So I think you're right. Maybe if we would have played someone else instead of Xhaka, I mean, obviously the goal was just on another level, but still it's not enough when it's continuous game in, game out. Unfortunately, we were playing a game where we were quite lucky in the sense that their defense is just as bad as ours as well. So we kind of got away with it in that sense, but still, after being 3-2 and then conceding the last goal, it's just so heartbreaking for everyone and the players as well. And I don't know if it's the team selection itself. I don't know if it's actually Xhaka I don't know why he's playing every single game. We've been seeing him. He has been, I don't like to say terrible, but he hasn't been good at all the past couple of games.
Andrew, can I just ask you something?
Yeah.
with regards to, I tweeted during the game, with regards to Xhaka and Iwobi, I don't actually know what they give to us. What's your views on this?
I can see that point of view. I find it hard to make individual judgments at the moment because I don't think the system that we have stands up to any scrutiny either. You know, we've had this back four, we've had a back three, that's been shifted around. You know, I can see the flaws in Xhaka's game. I can see he's got some qualities as well. But it reminds me, the situations remind me a little bit of when people were very critical of Ozil when he doesn't do the defending. You know, people go mad because he doesn't track back and he doesn't make tackles. Well, you know, that's not why you have Mesut Ozil in your team.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know this, right? So you know this guy has got some flaws. I mean, he's amazing. He's a brilliant player. But how do you offset those weaknesses? It's by building around him and making sure players in the team who build around him. You know, Iwobi, I'm not sure exactly what he is or what he's supposed to be doing in terms of where he's being deployed. You know, he's a link player. He's strong. He's got good ball control, but he looks a little bit lost. He looks like he doesn't quite know what he's supposed to be doing himself. Xhaka, yeah, look, I can understand all the criticism of him because he's so wasteful in possession at times. But again, I think he's a player who is left isolated. I think Hector Bellerin, for example, is another player who's been in for some criticism in recent times, but time and time again we see him isolated down that right-hand side where he's got no support, he's being overlapped, or he's got two men to contend with because what's going on around him, you know, nobody is supporting. There just seem to be players concentrating on themselves, trying to play well for themselves rather than within a team structure. Alexis as well, you know, and it's the yin and yang of Alexis. I mean, his desire to contribute got that goal for us, but the rest of his game was awful. I mean, the decision he made for their third goal, you know, the ball came to him on the wing. He could have just taken it down, held possession, waited, looked for a pass. Instead, he tried to do something risky and we got caught and we got punished. And, you know, so, you know, I accept that, you know, you can look at these individuals and say, he's not doing it. He's maybe not good enough. What he does is terrible. It's damaging. But I think it's part of a bigger problem overall. I think it's a bigger problem. As a team, we haven't really functioned very well this season, and maybe, for a couple of seasons now, we have days where everything clicks and we look great. You know, you think to Everton, you think of the cup final, you think of the game against Man City in the semi-final of the FA Cup, where it's all on the line and we can pull it out of the hat, but week in, week out, we just can't do it. And I think that comes from higher up.
So with regards to the isolation and with regards to not playing for a team but for themselves, as you know, Andrew, back in the 80s, this would never have happened. We've always played as a team. So in your opinion, who's to blame for this? Is it the individual players or is it the manager?
I think it has to be the manager. It has to be, because he's the one who picks the team, who trains the team, who coaches the team. You know, you can't really. One of the things you could always say under Arsene Wenger is that we had a very discernible style of play, right? Whether it worked or not, it was always obvious. And increasingly, I found it hard to know what it is that we're trying to do and how it is that we're trying to do it. And I think within that, you have players who then maybe try and take it upon themselves to do something within a game or within the season that will make a difference. You know, you think of a lot of what's happened this season. We're so reliant on individualism and individuals doing something brilliant rather than the team pulling together or creating these excellent moves, pulling teams apart with the way that we play football. I mean, you know, we saw, for example, the goal for Ozil last night with Lacazette. I mean, that was great interplay, but that was two players who pulled something off.
Yeah.
You know, Xhaka's was a long range hit. Alexis, you know, a good cross from Bellerin, and that was probably the best team goal of the night. There was some good interplay. I think there was a back heel from Xhaka in the build up to that. But generally speaking, I just find it really hard to know how we're trying to play football, and that can only come from the manager.
So it's an interesting point, because one of the things, obviously, that we've done poorly lately is go 2-0 down or we're always having to come from behind. And I don't think that we're a team that that does well when we go behind. We have this mental impotence sometimes, and that really spreads like cancer through the team very, very quickly. It wasn't as quick, Andrew, as it was going 2-0 down to Manchester United, but it did happen. And you could sense that we weren't playing well anyway. Our passes were awful. What do you think it is about us chasing the game, especially against big teams? It worked out for us yesterday, but that is something that is really a huge problem in the side.
I think it could just boil down to the fact that the other big teams, they've got good players. And I'm not saying we don't have good players. We do have good players, but they seem to have more structure to the way that they play. And we're a bit more free form. It's like go out and express yourselves and be individuals and, enjoy yourselves on the pitch. And I think increasingly modern players require structure. They require coaching. For all that you want to say about Pep Guardiola and Man City and all the money that they have to spend, he's got good players, but he's got good players playing brilliantly because they know what they're supposed to be doing. They're coached to the nth degree. And I don't think our players are. And I think as football changes and as modern footballers require more direction, I think we're becoming increasingly easier to play against. We talk about character and how we show character to get back into it, but there's also character in not going 2-0 down or not playing in a way that you could be 4-0 down at half time. We were so lucky to be only 1-0 down at half time. I just think there's a lack of structure, in terms of how the players are being sent out. I mean, I'll ask you guys, do you think that we look like we know exactly what we're trying to do when we go out on that pitch?
Never.
Nope.
Never. I never think that. I mean, when I saw the team sheet, I was, I knew that Maitland-Niles would be starting in front of Kolasinac. But even when you saw them playing, they didn't look like they had any clue what role any of them had. It was so haphazard. We were all over the place. No one was covering each other's backs. So many players were being left isolated. And it was awful to watch. And that's why we were so terrible in the first half. But I just want to go back to what you were talking about managing. And there's rumours going around that Arsene made some massive halftime team talk that sent them back out. Do you really think that's the case, or do you think it was just all down to the players?
I mean, it could be. It's so hard to know, isn't it? What goes on in the dressing room? We can't know that. I mean, I think Hector Bellerin said that the manager put them right at half time. But look, again, it just came down to the players producing 5 minutes out of 90. That's all it was. We had 5 minutes of really good football out of 90. And in those 5 minutes, we were devastating. I don't think that's not something you can do every week. You just can't rely on that kind of thing. You need to be able to control games. I don't think we've been able to control football matches for quite some time. You might be able to tie it into the absence of someone like Santi Cazorla, who gives you an assurance in midfield that we haven't had for a while. But I love Santi Cazorla. I think everybody loves Santi Cazorla, but his deployment in there always felt like a last ditch attempt to try and find something that works. You'd never really have put him as a midfield anchorman or the deepest lying midfielder. He just happened to have that ability to move in and out of possession and to keep the ball and not lose it, for example, in the way that Xhaka can do sometimes. So he had that assurance and it gave us a bit more control. Mm-hmm. I just think that defensively the setup is not right. I don't think you can play players out of position for any sustained period in a back four. And midfield, for me, the balance has not been right for two seasons more, perhaps. And if you don't have a really high functioning central midfield in Premier League football these days, you will get found out more often than not. And I think that's been the case, particularly in the big games against the really good teams.
Yeah, totally agree. And, you know, it's a shame that we can't play the way we did in those 4 or 5 minutes, and do it the same way City and Liverpool do. But for Liverpool missing chances and Czech's heroics, it could have been a lot worse in that first half. And I just want to move things along because, Andrew, one of the things that, you know, I feel like as the season goes in, you know, our squad we have a fairly deep squad. We can call upon players, but are they the right players? January transfer window, before we get stuck into some of the nuts and bolts, do you love or loathe it?
I'm kind of indifferent to it. You know, I think we've all gone through enough of them to hear if we find somebody of the right quality, you know, we'll strengthen our squad. We've heard that time and time again. So I try and keep some distance from it. You know, there's so much nonsense that goes on in the media about transfers because it's open season and you get all the clickbait and everything else. So you've got to try and wade yourself through that. I mean, it's impossible to look at what's going on at the moment and not say, you know what, we could do with spending some money. We could do with buying some players. But then you wonder, are the right players available in January? And I wonder, you know, increasingly, I wonder, is Arsene Wenger the right man to spend the money? Now, maybe the arrival of the guy from Borussia Dortmund, the head of recruitment, might open our eyes a bit in terms of the players that we can identify. Maybe that has been part of the problem for a long time. There's been issues with scouting for quite some time at Arsenal. And this new guy comes in with new contacts, with new ideas, with perhaps a new list of players that we might be able to bring in. So perhaps that will give us a bit of something, but I'm not expecting a great deal to happen in January, to be honest.
So speaking of January, you know, the biggest question that's on everybody's mind is the Alexis and Ozil, will they stay or will they go? If you had to choose one to stay and one to go, who would it be and why?
I keep Ozil because I think he's got more left in the tank, I think, as a player. They're both 29. And if you're going to offer a new deal, you know, at really high wages, you want to get some value for that, right? I just think he is perhaps an easier player to build around than Alexis, who is the arch individual. I mean, when he's on song, Alexis, he's a brilliant player. I just feel like physically he might be hitting something of a wall. I don't think he wants to stay anyway, Alexis. I think Ozil might well want to stay.
Agreed.
I also think that we should probably keep them both until the summer, regardless of what happens. You know, I don't know that we can, as frustrating as he is and as poor as his form has been this season, I just don't see how we can hope to replace what he can give us with what we've got in the squad. You know, Danny Welbeck, Alex Iwobi, Theo Walcott, you know, good players, but do they have the ability to do what Alexis can do? And maybe he might find some form in the second half of the season. I don't really buy into the idea that he doesn't care or he doesn't try. You know, he's just not that kind of a character. He's completely out of form. He's wasteful. He's careless. I don't think it's because he doesn't care. I think maybe in some ways it's because he's trying too hard to make things happen rather than simplifying his game. But if it came right down to it and we could definitely keep one, for me, it would be Ozil.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about Alexis, you're right. You can't really say he's not trying, but it is also sometimes hard as a fan to just watch and see his attitude on the pitch and then still care and want him to be playing every game. But if you were to buy anyone, because you mentioned Santi Cazorla earlier, what position would you like to see us strengthen?
I do think central midfield. If we could find the right player for central midfield, I'd be all over that. I think it maybe a centre half as well would be a welcome addition to the squad. We've got two young centre halves, Rob Holding and Callum Chambers. Chambers was given a new deal, but we don't seem willing or ready to put our faith in them when it comes to the Premier League. So if that's the case, then let's go find someone who is ready for that. You know, I think Laurent Koscielny is a guy who's been brilliant for us, but he looks like he's struggling physically at the moment, doesn't he? And that's having an effect on his performances. I like Nacho Monreal, but I don't think he's a centre half in a back four. But again, it's about who's out there, and who we can get and who's willing to sell in January and who's willing to move in January, because quite often, players who are available in January are available because they're not wanted by their clubs, not because they're capable of being lured away in the summer. So it's a difficult market, January. We'll have to see. He's bought players in the past. Arshavin has come in, Gabriel, Adebayor, Walcott, I think came in January's. So it is possible to find some players, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not expecting a great deal, maybe one out, but apart from that, I think he'll just stick with what he's got.
Yeah, and you mentioned players leaving in January. What do you think about Giroud leaving? How would you feel if he did leave?
I would prefer to hang on to him until the summer. Maybe the injury that he's got might prevent him from leaving, because he's got a hamstring strain. It might be difficult for him to find a new club. Obviously, you can see why he might want to go because of the World Cup and because of playing time. He's not really starting in the Premier League, but I think he is still a useful player for us. He does give us a different kind of option up front. He is capable of scoring goals. Particularly in the latter stages of games. I think in 2017 he's got 10 goals after the 80th minute. That's a brilliant quality for a player to have. I think probably come the summer he might be on his way, but I wouldn't let him go in January if I could help it.
Andrew, I don't really discuss the transfer windows. I hate the July. I hate the January, especially with Arsenal and Arsene Wenger. So can we just discuss some of our squad members? Sure. Because we've got really good squad members who play in cup games. They might deserve a shot starting more regularly. Can I just ask your thoughts on, would you consider Debuchy for Bellerin, El Neni for Xhaka, Reece Nelson for anyone, even Sanchez, or Maitland-Niles for anyone on a regular basis? Any of those, do they float your boat?
Not especially. I think that's why I think that there's been a really clear demarcation, hasn't there, between the two teams this season. I think what was interesting about the Europa League and the Carabao Cup was the idea that these guys could come in and really show Arsene Wenger that they deserve a place in the first team, or it will create this competitive environment. And instead, what it seems to have done is just separate the Premier League team from the Europa League team, because anyone who plays in the Europa League is not going to play the next game in the Premier League because of fatigue or tiredness and all that kind of stuff. The only one who's made the breakthrough back into the side is Jack Wilshere. I think, the players you mentioned, Debuchy, I think he could do a job, but he says he wants to leave in January. So
don't blame him, really, do you?
I don't blame him, but at the same time, he wanted to leave a couple of years ago as well. So I'm not sure there's that much fight in him, or as much fight. But, he's a decent player and he could do a job. El Neni, I think, is a useful kind of a player. Again, a squad player. He'll come in. He won't make mistakes. He'll keep things ticking. But, El Neni's not going to give you, even as poorly as he might have played at times against Liverpool, he's not going to give you that 30-yard screamer that Xhaka gave you, or the range of passing. So, the others, Reece Nelson, who's he going to play for? That's the thing. What I might like to see, actually, given that, Danny Welbeck, for example, has been thrown on as a right winger in the last 4 or 5 games and has made no impact whatsoever. Maybe give Reece Nelson a little bit of a go there. Why not? Because, you might as well try something new. Whether the manager feels he's ready for it yet, I don't know. I can see why he would go with Danny Welbeck, the experience, but at some point, maybe you've got to give the youngster a go. He's willing to give Maitland-Niles a go in an unfamiliar position, which is why I would be okay with Maitland-Niles being given a go in his more favored position. It's sort of reminiscent a little bit of Iwobi making the breakthrough, towards the end of the season before last. Remember, he was played in Barcelona in the Champions League, and he looked exciting and everything else. So I find it, what's the word I'm looking for here? I just try and remain a little bit cautious when I see someone like Maitland-Niles, who you look at him and you go, yeah, he's got really good qualities and good potential, but what's he going to be like in 12 months' time? How is he going to be used? Is he going to develop as well as we hope? And that's the thing with so many of the young players that have come through in the last little while. They just quite haven't developed the way we would have liked.
But we've seen this in the past before. We've seen it with Theo Walcott. We've seen it with Oxlade-Chamberlain. It's a pattern that's been happening consistently down the years. And I still think it's to do with who's manager. I think it's to do with Arsene Wenger. I think that's why, we're in this situation where in the past he used to develop players and they'd get better. For me, a lot of them are going backwards now. So, we've been talking about players we want in the transfer window, but what about Wenger? I mean, do you think it's his last contract? Do you think he's tarnished his legacy? What do you think about Arsene? Do you want him to stay? Do you want him to go? I know these are questions we keep asking ourselves, but I'm asking you now.
I would like him to go, and I would like him to go in the summer. I thought after winning the cup against Chelsea, that would have been a brilliant time for him personally to leave, because he would have gone out on such a high, that was such an amazing day. And to win that game, we were such underdogs. It was a brilliant performance. To go out on a trophy would have been amazing. At the same time, I don't think the club was ready for any kind of change. Mm-hmm. We did not have the ability to make the requisite changes in order to bring in a new coach. I think what's been interesting this season and in the last number of weeks is the fact that we've brought some people in behind the scenes. We're bringing in Sven Mislintat, who is the head of recruitment. I think there's something telling in the fact that he's got that title. Head of recruitment implies some power. And we know until now Arsene Wenger has had all the power. And we're bringing in the guy from Barcelona. He was the former Barcelona director of football. He's going to do something similar at Arsenal, even though he won't be called director of football. And what it means is you've got men in place who can help facilitate the new kind of coach. Nobody wants to come in and do what Arsene Wenger does. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to manage every aspect of the club at micro level, So I think we may well be I think we're definitely looking at his last contract. And I have a suspicion or a theory that maybe this could be his last season to avoid the issues that him going into the final year of his contract could raise. There's on the one hand, if he says he's going, and this is my final year, that creates a difficult environment. He's a dead man walking. His authority within the dressing room is then diminished, because psychologically the players know, well, this guy's he's not going to be my manager next year. Mm-hmm. Whether consciously or subconsciously, I think that has an effect. The other aspect is, we don't want to go through a period of 6 months of people asking, are you staying? Are you staying? Are you staying? Are you staying? Mm-hmm. Like we had before. It became the thing that it just encompassed everything, didn't it? Every press conference, every media, every post-game interview was all about what's going on with you, what's happening with your contract. It became a huge issue and a huge distraction. We saw the effects of that on the pitch. Mm-hmm. We don't need that again. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if the 2-year contract was signed with the idea that he might go at the end of this season to avoid all of that. I could be overthinking it.
I don't think you are, Andrew. I don't think you're overthinking it at all, because the media frenzy, they don't need much to pounce on Arsenal, do they? We're a dartboard for a lot of different people. And I think the point that you raised about the fact that we weren't ready after that FA Cup win is really important. And the behind the scenes stuff is really tasty, because when we do look at a replacement, the one person that has become prevalent over the last 2 weeks is Mikel Arteta. And we're seeing what they're doing at City and what he's learning under Pep Guardiola. They're also talking about maybe Per and Arteta as a combo. What do you think about that combo? Does it excite you, or as Amanda says, does it float your boat?
Float my boat. Look, I think there would be something quite exciting about it, because we could go out and get an Ancelotti or get an experienced manager. But remember back to when we brought in Arsene Wenger, and nobody really had any idea who he was. And for a club as risk averse as Arsenal, and I think there is that streak that runs through us like a stick of rock, isn't there? That we don't tend to take too many risks. Perhaps the biggest success we've had in the last 25 years is the fact that we took a risk by appointing Arsene Wenger. Now, whether Mikel Arteta is ready to become manager of a club of this size, I'm not quite sure. He is getting a good education under Pep Guardiola. And Guardiola, as a manager, I think he only had 1 or 1.5 seasons with the Barcelona B team, but he still had that experience of managing a team. And I just wonder if that's something that Arteta might lack. But I'd love to see us appoint somebody young, somebody with new ideas, somebody perhaps who does know the club, who's got a bit of a connection to the club. It's hard to think of who that might be, though, in terms of ex-players and what have you. But certainly Arteta, as a guy who thinks about the game very seriously, you know, he could have stayed. He had an offer to stay at Arsenal and be part of the coaching staff at Arsenal. And he decided to go to work with Pep Guardiola, and I don't think you can blame him for that at all, simply because of the quality of Guardiola and what experience that might be, but also as a career move to have worked with Wenger for 5 years and to see how he does things, to then go and work with a guy like Guardiola, how that must inform your own ideas and the way that you think about the game is amazing and a brilliant thing to be able to add to your locker before you embark on your managerial career. So, look, things are happening. Like you say, Mertesacker is going to take over the academy. You know, we've got these 2 new guys coming in. There are perhaps other changes going to be made over the next number of months. So we'll wait and see what happens. But I think, you know, change at this point, it's overdue. And it's just how the club manages it. I think that will be the really important thing, you know.
Andrew, I'm a little bit old school and I miss having a proper bloody captain on the pitch. Now, for me, I don't think Cos deserves to be captain. I think his form is terrible this season. I don't know what's going on with him. Do you think there might not be better leaders in the team, say Monreal, Giroud, Ozil? You know, what's your take on this? And is it important to have a captain?
I think who are the inspirational captains that you can think of? Like Tony Adams, obviously. Roy Keane, Manchester United. Much as I hate to say it, John Terry at Chelsea, that kind of a captain, right, is one that you would always want to have in your team, but they're so rare. Those guys are really rare. Those kind of characters are really rare. I don't really necessarily see the obvious leader within our team in terms of just general character and what they might bring on the pitch in terms of their spikiness and their connection with the club. Jack Wilshere is maybe the one that sticks out for me, but I don't know if Jack Wilshere is a player who's going to play every game week in, week out. We don't even know if he's going to be offered a new contract at this stage.
Yeah.
So I absolutely take your point. Sometimes I think the idea of the captaincy can be a bit overblown. Like I can see teams don't necessarily need one, but if you've got a great one, it can make a difference. You think of the Barcelona team. I know they had Puyol was a captain for a while, but then after he left, they were still an amazing team. They didn't have that chest thumping leader. They were just brilliant footballers with a brilliant team. So you can do without it. It's hard to know, isn't it? I mean,
I miss Tony Adams, Andrew. I miss Tony Adams.
That's what I mean. I think that we have this connection. Perhaps it's generational. You know, that's who we grew up with, and he was just that natural born leader. He was a guy who wanted to win, who would put his body on the line for the club. He was vocal. But you know, they're not 10 a penny, these guys. They're hard to find. They really are hard to find. And maybe you've got guys with great natural leadership ability. They just don't have the football ability to make it at the highest level, you know. They'd probably go and be like politicians or something awful like that. But, yeah, look, I don't know what we should do with the captaincy, to be honest. Koscielny is struggling. But
that's an understatement.
It is. Yeah, he is. And I feel sorry for him, you know, because he's had this ongoing problem with his Achilles tendon that requires daily treatment. It requires injections. I think he is now becoming increasingly hampered by it. And I wonder if it's having an effect on him psychologically. If he's playing through a certain amount of pain, can you ignore the pain week in, week out? Or does it start to have an effect on how you play? And you look at some of the performances in the last few weeks, it's been so uncharacteristic, the mistakes that he's made, that you have to wonder what's going on. There has to be something more to it than just, a guy getting to 32. 32 for a centre half is still okay,
Yeah, it's quite young.
You can, as a smart player, you can deal with the fact that your body is slowing down as a defender because you can read the game better. You've got more experience. You can see what's going on around you. So I do think there's something else happening with Koscielny.
Yeah, speaking of a player that's been blighted by injuries, etc., Rosicky retired this week, and I always think it's rather sad. Me personally, I really liked him. I've seen some people said he's not been that good online, but anyway, do you think he could have been one of our best ever if he hadn't had all those injuries?
Maybe not one of the best ever, but I think he could have made a big contribution to us over the time of his career at Arsenal. I think he was a really smart footballer, really intelligent, really positive. You look at games, you all know that game where we play against a packed defense and they sit and we pass the ball sideways from left to right and right to left and right to left and left to right, and you go, oh, come on, somebody. Rosicky was the kind of player who was great in those kind of games because he was positive the whole time. He would always try and make something happen. He was relentless in his positivity. He always wanted to move the ball forward. He always wanted to get forward and break through the lines. And I wrote about it during the week on the website. For me, he was, of all the players that we've had who've been hampered by injury, and, you think of Diaby, you think of Eduardo, Rosicky is the one I have the most regrets over. I think he could have made a really, really strong contribution to the team in the time that he was out injured. And, he was a fan as well. He got it. We wonder sometimes, when players, they hit the badge, do they really care? I think he was a guy who really cared as well. Mm-hmm. And it's a real shame. And there's always people online who'll say this guy wasn't great or this guy was no good or whatever. But, we all know what we saw when he was playing. And I think his quality was, inarguable. Sorry.
Exactly.
So what do you feel then, Andrew? Rosicky's goals, which is your favourite? Mine was when Tottenham away, when he scored. I think it was in the first minute, if I remember correctly. I'm so useless at stats, but I was there. I'm sure it was that goal. But anyway, what's your favourite goal?
I love that one. Obviously, any goal against Tottenham's a great one. I mean, you remember that the other one that he scored was one of the 5-2 games. Do you remember where we moved the ball and he just came in at the back post and nicked it in with the outside of his foot?
Yeah.
But
I think it was the second. Sorry, Gunn. I think it was the second 5-2. Go on, carry on.
Yeah. I love the one in the FA Cup a couple of years ago where he caught Danny Rose in possession on the halfway line and he sprinted through and just waited and not that it was in any way similar to Michael Thomas, but it was one of those where you're going, score it, do it, don't wait. And then just as the keeper came out, he dinked it over him. And I think when you see a player who was at that stage, maybe 32, 33 years of age, with the pace that he had to get away from those Tottenham defenders, to score that goal in the FA Cup, I love that one as well. I think there was one against, Hamburg, probably his first Arsenal goal as well. Was an absolute screamer from outside the box. He absolutely buried it in a Champions League game. So yeah, those are the ones that stick out for me.
I mean, we've seen a lot of Arsenal and ex-Arsenal players talk about Rosicky this week. Some of them from Flamini, Cesc, and a few others. So I'm just going to go through some of the posts that they've actually shared. The first one was from Mesut Ozil, which he wrote, "Congrats to a player with a big heart on a great playing career. I wish you all the best for your retirement." The next one is from Martinez. "If you love football, you love this man," echoing what I think Wenger had said once. Another one was Gibbs, "Special player, special guy, lucky to have played alongside you. Enjoy retirement, Super Tom." We also had Flamini. Flamini did 2 posts. One was just pictures, and then one was with him and Cesc Fabregas. Cesc did a separate one on his own. So my question to you is, I don't know if you saw the video that Flamini and Cesc made. What did you think of it if you did see it, and have your feelings towards Cesc changed for now?
Oh, listen, I I have a huge soft spot for Cesc Fabregas.
Me too. I have a crush on him and soft spot. I love him.
Me too.
I can't say I had a crush on him, but I loved him as a footballer. I obviously was gutted when he went to Chelsea. It was just like, please go anywhere else. Well, not anywhere, but maybe go to Italy, Cesc. Come on. But you could understand why he has a career to think of. Arsenal had an option and didn't take it, and I think that's something we probably should have done. So I can't have any ill will towards Cesc Fabregas. I know lots of people do, and every time you see his name mentioned on Twitter or whatever, there's like a bazillion snake emojis and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get why people would think like that, but I just can't. I love him, and I love what he did for us when he was here, and I feel like we wasted his talent for too many seasons by not giving him the players that he really needed to thrive and to be able to have the impact on the team and the club that he should have had, because he was just such a talented player.
Yeah. You are listening to Highbury and Heels. We have Andrew from Arseblog with us today, and as well as his incredible website and his podcast, Andrew's a super talented dude. I mean, with the velvet voice, right? How can you not have a voiceover career? You do a bunch of voiceover stuff, and we want to know, what's the weirdest thing you've done or worked on voiceover wise? There's got to be a little golden nugget of a story in there somewhere.
The weirdest thing. Okay, probably many years ago, I had to voice something for one of those telephone lines, where you not one of those.
Oh, like the 800 numbers, like those dirty phone lines.
No.
Oh, gutted.
I was getting to this. It was one of those where you ring up and it's a competition line or something, and it's, you're charged 90p a minute or whatever it is, and it was one of those.
Oh, that's not as interesting.
The competition line. Please wait for the questions. One of those where you have to speak really slow. I also did some stuff for an Icelandic animated version of Thor, where I played a French chef, a monster, and a guy with a hatchet in his head. It was an animated movie. So that was quite weird, but also quite fun. So yeah. Most of the time, though, it's fairly mundane stuff. It's just like terrible radio ads for products you'll never use. But that's the par for the course.
So with that velvet voice, as Sophie calls it, have you ever had dreams of being a commentator?
A commentator? No. I mean, I did work on the radio for years. That was my thing, really. I was a radio presenter till I was about 25. And that's kind of what I always wanted to do, was be a radio DJ, and I was that for a while, and for various reasons that are too long and boring to get into, I fell out of that, and that was why I think I started the podcast about 10 years ago, because ultimately you can do what you want. You can sit behind the microphone, you can make stuff up, you can talk to people, talk to interesting people, talk about football, do stupid skits and songs and voices and whatever else. So I think that's for me, that's the real beauty of podcasting, is the freedom it gives you. You have a blank slate to do whatever you want, and thankfully people seem to enjoy it. So I'm very grateful for that.
Speaking of podcasting, you also write blogs. So what's the best and worst thing about your blog? And not your blog, but writing a blog. Yeah.
But what's the best and worst thing? I mean, look, sometimes it's difficult, when you've had a really bad result, and you've got to get up and you've got to try and make some kind of sense of it, and try and make your points in a way that don't make you come across as unreasonable, because sometimes you can be quite unhappy with what we've done, But it's just trying to find the balance between what you think and what's the right way to say it. Some mornings, it's 7 days a week, so you got to get up on a Saturday morning, a Sunday morning, even if you've got a bit of a hangover, You've got to do the blog, and I don't complain about that, but that's probably one of the more challenging aspects of it, is that some mornings, you know, when you wake up first thing and you're like, oh, I'd love to just lie here for another 2 hours. You've got to get up and do a blog. But, in other ways, I feel very privileged that that's, you know, a big part of what I do. So it doesn't cost me that much to do that. It's kind of a privilege, isn't it, to write about the team that you support and for people to read it. So I don't
like
take that.
it.
Yeah, well, yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. It's so awesome.
Did you actually think it was going to become so big?
No, I had no idea what was going to happen, because I just started it for a laugh, really, just to start a website and to learn how to do web design. And really, I had no clue whatsoever that it was going to take off the way that it did. I mean, certainly if you'd said it to me, it'll be 16 years ago in February. And if you'd told me back then that you'd still be doing it in 16 years time, I've gone, yeah, right. No chance. No chance. So no, I mean, it's been quite the ride, actually. And it's been great, obviously. I think perhaps that it happened that way is much better, because if you maybe set out to say, right, I'm going to go out and, I'm going to make a big website, you might have gone in a different direction with it. You know, you might write in a way that generates more clicks, for example, or express opinions in a way that might create a bit more interaction, you know. Whereas I've always just tried to be honest, and I think people have responded to that. And, maybe there's a lot to be said for just being patient and building things slowly.
Okay, Andrew. So apart from Arsenal, what did you miss most when you lived in Spain?
Weather. The weather.
You really missed England's weather?
No. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant when I left Spain.
No, what did you miss when you lived in Spain?
Family and friends, obviously. But that's kind of it. I definitely didn't miss the Irish weather, that's for sure.
You didn't miss Arsenal. You didn't miss Arsenal.
Well, I could see Arsenal, because you know what happened? It was around the time when we had, Fabregas had sort of joined, Reyes had joined. We'd begun to create this little Spanish cohort at the club. So there was a lot of Arsenal on the TV over there. And we still had, we had our Sky box, so we could watch whenever Arsenal were on Sky. It was different back then. You didn't have streaming, for every single game, but what you could find was radio commentary. And I'm sure you guys down the years have experienced many games on the radio. And it's still quite an exciting way of doing a match, because everything sounds like it's going to be a goal just because of the way the commentators do it. But yeah, I got back over it because, I mean, Barcelona is still only an hour and a half from London. Dublin's an hour, less than an hour, but it's not that much further from Barcelona. So yeah, I mean, I was able to maybe get even more of Arsenal because of the way things were going with the media and with the way that football was expanding, and certainly on Spanish satellite TV, because we had Spanish players, we were on all the time. They loved us.
Okay, so as we said, what did you miss most when you lived in Spain? I'm assuming now you're back in Ireland that you missed the jamon ruffles quite a bit.
Dude, thankfully my daughter's just home for Christmas and she's brought me a couple of packets, so I'm my fix. I'm jonesing for my fix here now. Actually, I'm going to go down and eat a whole load of them.
A couple of hundred packets, I bet.
Sadly not, but no, yeah. Look, those are things, and look, it's Barcelona is an amazing city and it's an amazing lifestyle, and the weather is great. So it's very difficult not to miss that. But maybe I'll go back at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, I love Barcelona too. My niece is a teacher there, and it's an awesome city. Right, Andrew, we've talked football. Okay, we've tried to cover as much as we can with you on the Gunners, and there's a little Gunners in this next segment, but we like to have fun, and it's also Christmas, so we need to deliver cheer to the Arsenal universe, and this is our Quickfire round. Okay. So it's like literally Quickfire. So we're going to throw a bunch of questions at you, and you are going to answer them as quickly as you can. We'll start once I ring the cowbell, all right, and then we will stop when I ring the cowbell too. So brace yourself.
Okay.
And here we go.
Best Christmas movie?
Bad Santa.
Voiceover, the 89 film or Invincibles DVD?
89.
Why?
Oh, do you even need to ask?
It's quickfire. It's quickfire.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Trapped in an elevator with Wenger or Graham?
Wenger.
On a scale of Thierry, who never got injured, to Diaby, who was permanently injured, how much do you want James to get sick to end an Arsenal losing run?
Diaby and a half.
Okay, go to the cinema or watch a movie at home.
At home.
Pizza or Chinese takeaway.
Pizza.
There's a fire. You have to save one. RVP or Cashly.
That's brilliant.
Neither. Ashley Cole.
Okay, if you were a woman, Thierry Henry or Freddie Ljungberg.
Thierry.
All right, Game of Thrones or Walking Dead?
Game of Thrones.
Eggnog or Baileys?
Neither.
You find a bag of money on your doorstep. Are you keeping it or are you reporting it?
It's on my doorstep. Finders keepers.
Kate and Wills or Harry and Meghan?
I think Meghan looks like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. So
Okay, one player from another team you wish had played for Arsenal.
Lionel Messi.
Okay, yeah, a toughie here. Arsenal win the Champions League but get relegated the next season, or we finish top four forever and ever and ever. What one are you taking?
Win the Champions League. The variety is necessary.
Yeah, agreed. Bergkamp's third goal versus Leicester or Thierry's long distance run against the Spurs?
Bergkamp's goal against Leicester.
Okay. Boxing Day or New Year's Day?
Boxing Day.
Right, girls, how did he do? I think he smashed it, personally. I think he smashed it. Out of all of our guests, I'm going to say Arseblog did the best here.
Oh, you're biased because he's on.
Yeah. No.
Nice to me while I'm still here.
When you're
and we're going to keep you for just a few minutes longer, Andrew. Thanks for spending so much time with us today. Our next segment, I'm just going to let Sophia, explain to you. We've had some hits and misses and hilarity with this one. So I have a feeling Andrew's going to win. What do you guys think?
We'll see.
Shall I just bow out now?
No, you cannot. No, you cannot bow out now, Amanda.
This sounds ominous.
It's not ominous. It's
game.
You'll have fun, trust me. So, this is a little game I devised called How May I Assist You? And it's in honour of my current favourite player, Mesut Ozil, our assist king. So, down the years, Arsenal has scored many famous goals. I'm going to tell you who scored one of those goals, but I want you to tell me who delivered the final ball. I'm going to give you a number of clues. If you think you've got the answer, say stop. I'll say your name and you tell me who you think it is. If the answer's wrong, I'll ask the other girls or gentlemen. If none of you get it, then I'll do another clue and keep going until you get the answer correctly. They've actually done not too badly in the last few that I've done, so we'll see. Right. Does that make all sense to you, Andrew?
Sure does.
Cool. Brilliant.
Boom, boom. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. I'm going to go back 22 years when the
22. Tell us the year.
35.
Oh my God.
Right.
We're so winning this.
Right. When the legend, that is Dennis Bergkamp, finally broke his Arsenal duck by scoring in a 4-2 Premier League win over Southampton on September the 23rd, 1995. He netted twice that day, but what I want to know is who supplied the assist to his first goal. First clue. He played 39 games for Arsenal in 2 seasons, scoring just 1 goal. You can think out loud.
John Jensen.
You did say stop.
Oh, stop.
No. Jensen wasn't that long ago, was he?
I don't know, because I'm useless at this. So I'm just saying John Jensen because he scored 1 goal.
Okay. This is the bit where there's a little dead air and everyone's thinking. Don't get scared.
But this is why I said you can think out loud, but you can't say your answer out loud. You think, you say stop and
I
then
get told off every
So
point.
what year was it? You said 22 years ago.
1995. September
maybe
the
was it
20th. September
Andrew, do you have any ones on this one?
It's ringing a bell for me, but
No Google allowed.
No
Give us
Google
another clue.
allowed. Okay.
was it stop?
Go on, Andrew.
Oh,
Was it Glenn Helder?
Oh my
oh my God.
Congratulations.
Serious?
It
Wow.
was the much maligned midfielder, Glenn Helder. Wow, I'm so impressed.
Oh my God.
That is why you're Arseblog and the girls are the girls.
That's nice.
Oh,
That's
I
sweet.
remember Glenn Hilder. I bet you don't.
I'm sure Sina doesn't. Anyway.
I remember Glenn Helder. He was
Well
terrible.
done, Andrew.
Well done, Andrew. That's the first for us. Anyway.
Not for the leader.
Well, not anymore. You're not. Andrew's third now in our league. You've
Yeah.
only won one, so don't get too fancy schmancy over there. In
I
your
haven't
fight.
won any.
Well, it's a
No,
joint.
you're bottom of the league. You're Swansea,
Yeah.
Amanda. You are Swansea City.
It's now a joint
Right.
top three.
Okay, so Andrew, we're going to get you out on this segment, okay? And this is actually my favourite segment. Amanda, why don't you take it over here? And I love that we have a man involved in this one.
This is going to be interesting. So, Andrew, we're going to come to you first. Okay, in honour of little Mozart, we pick from Arsenal's favourite sevens: Snog, marry, avoid, Rosicky, Perez, or Brady.
I love this.
So what? I have to choose one
Yep.
to snog,
Yep.
one to marry, and
Yep.
one to avoid.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Well, if I had the chance to marry Robert Perez, I would definitely have to take that. So I'm going to marry Perez. I would probably have to snog Tomas Rosicky, and I'll avoid Liam Brady because I've met him a few times and I really like him. But I don't want to either marry him or snog him, so I'm left with no other choice. So.
That's fair enough. I get that. Seema.
Oh, God. You always come to me first. I don't know. This is hard. I think I would marry Rosicky, snog Perez, and avoid Brady.
All right. Okay, I can get that.
Okay, I would snog Rosicky because I just want to give him a snog to say thanks for that screamer against the Spuds. As you do. I would avoid Liam Brady. He was a legend, but I'm afraid he's the one I'm going to have to just leave on the sidelines. And obviously, Dreamy Bobby. Who wouldn't want to see that face every morning when you wake up and every night when you go back to bed and in between and every day? And yes.
All right, stop.
I am
stop.
marrying.
Shut up. You haven't got
Right.
a picture with him like I have.
Right.
Excuse me, I've got a few pictures with him, with
Whatever.
and without the beard. So I've seen him on
okay.
every...
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit differently. You might be surprised. I would snog Perez because I think it would be one of those like one-time things that you remember forever. I would marry Liam Brady because I've always had a crush on him and I loved watching him play, and he's got silky smooth moves. So I'm digging that. And I would avoid Rosicky just because he's always injured, and that doesn't make for a happy day or life, really, does it? So there you have snog, marry, avoid.
Okay, so my choices are this. I would absolutely marry Robert Perez because he is mine. I'd have to snog Brady because my dad would never forgive me because that was his favourite player of all time. And that's when I started supporting Arsenal properly. And Rosicky is a bit the same as you, Sophie. That was going to be my thing. He's always injured and I'd probably injure him. So that's avoid.
Nice. Yeah, see, great minds think alike. Me, you, man. Stick there. Right there.
Yes.
Right
Snog
then.
Perez every day. Oh my God. Yes.
Oh, Andrew, thank you so much. I mean, you've been an absolute pleasure. And not only do we love your podcast and your blog and stuff like that, we love following you on Twitter. You got so many great perspectives on Arsenal, and we really appreciate you spending, you know, an hour in your day with us before the Christmas holidays. What are you doing for your Christmas holidays? Have you been naughty? Have you been nice? Have you been a good boy? Santa going to be good to you?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm at the moment cooking my ham because we'll go up to my dad's for Christmas dinner on Monday. So yeah, doing the cooking and that kind of stuff. So a few last minute bits and pieces to get today. Probably a couple of pints later on, and from there on in, it's hopefully nice, relaxing few days. And well, thanks for having me on. I hope you guys have a great Christmas as well.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Happy Christmas, Andrew.
Merry Christmas.
Andrew.
Guys.
Bye.
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 Okay, so thanks to Andrew again. Quick fire prediction round. Done in 60 seconds, girls. What do you say about the Crimbo football season? We got Crystal Palace. We got West Brom coming up. Sophia.
Okay, so Palace away. They're on a good run at the moment. We're still not that convincing. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. West Brom away. They're terrible. We're not as terrible as they are. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win.
Amanda, what do you think?
Crystal Palace, I think will lose 3-1. West Brom, I think will win 2-0.
Seema.
I think we will win both games. Crystal Palace 2-1, West Brom 3-0.
I agree. I'm going to go with a Palace 3-1 and a West Brom 4-0. I think West Brom is so poor right now, and I think Palace have been riding this little gravy train, and I think that gravy train is about to end. Speaking of gravy, we love to give stuff away here on Highbury and Heels. We've had a competition with Matt Lucas and the book, and Sophia, do you have a winner for us? And you're also Santering today and giving something else away.
I do indeed. So the question we asked was, Mac's character in Doctor Who is called Nardole, but what was the full name of the Doctor's other assistant? The answer, of course, was Bill Potts. We ran the random number generator, easy for me to say, and the first name out of the hat with the correct answer was Tony Pickle. Yay!
Well done, Pickle!
Congratulations, Tony. We'll be in touch to get your details, and the book will be winging its way over to you. But that, as Sophie said, that's not all. We have another prize to give away. In fact, 2 prizes to give away. The lovely Lee Dixon, Arsenal legend and producer of the wonderful 89 film, has signed 2 limited edition 89 film mugs, and we're going to give our listeners the chance to win them. All you have to do is answer the following question. Lee Dixon was part of the famous back 4 who won the league at Anfield in 1989. But who were the other 3? Full names, please. Now, it couldn't be much easier than that. If you don't know the answer to that, then you cannot call yourself an Arsenal fan. To be in with the chance of getting your mitts on the mug, all you have to do is like our Facebook page at Highbury and Heels and post your answer in the comment section. Good luck, Gooners!
And Amanda, you cannot enter this competition even though you know most things about 89, okay? So don't try and create an alias and try and win the mug, all right?
I have a mug, thank you. It's just not signed.
Right.
And I'd like one of our listeners to get it. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Good girl. And Seema, where else can our listeners follow us on these social platforms out there in the big bad internet universe?
So Twitter is Highbury Heels. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube is Highbury and Heels.
So it's really important that, you know, we love connecting with people. We love answering your questions. We're all in different corners of the earth and we're available. This is a 24/7. We're 7-Eleven. We're the 7-Eleven podcast, aren't we? Really? It's been another great show. It's Christmas and I cannot leave without knowing what my girls are doing for the Christmas holidays. Amanda, what's up with your Christmas?
Football, family, fun.
Oh, the 3 Fs. I'm glad you just left it at that.
I'm going to stop it until we get to the 4th one. Let's not go to the 4th one.
Yeah, let's not.
Sophia, are you doing? I'm pretty sure there's some Jamaican stuff involved.
Yeah, same with me. Football, family, fun, frolicking. That was the fourth I came up with, but there you go.
The cleaner version. And Seema, what are you up to?
I'm actually staying in Dubai, but I have my friends from London here, so we're going to have a nice evening in, I think.
Excellent.
But I'm going to Lebanon on a New Year, so that's amazing.
Nice. That sounds like fun. And I'll be playing golf on Christmas Day. And I'm sure you guys have been a little naughty and a little nice. So I hope Santa is lovely to each and every one of you. We have been so grateful for everybody who has listened, followed. We started this bugger in the summer and we're loving it, and we hope you are loving it. We have got some phenomenal guests coming up in 2018. Stay tuned. And make sure that you follow us on Twitter. We'll be making some announcements in the coming weeks as well. And that's it. There's only one thing left to say for the last time in 2017, and that is
always Arsenal.
Bye.